Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
10 years after President Obama authorized the raid by Special Operations Forces that killed Osama bin Laden, he sat down with Admiral William McRaven, former commander of the United States Special Operations Command, who oversaw Operation Neptune Spear, to reflect on that mission and its impact.
10 years ago this week, you were obviously in that final period of deciding what to do, of evaluating risk. Is there a moment or two that stands out in your head from that period?
When I look back, with the benefit of 10 years, what strikes me maybe is not a particular moment. The number of people who operated at the very highest levels for a sustained period of time, that is something that I appreciate even more a decade later. It makes me appreciate how, unfortunately, rare that is. And it makes me wonder sometimes how we can duplicate that kind of mission orientation and focus in so many of the other challenges that our country has to meet.
Admiral McRaven, in this same period of time leading up to the operation itself, President Obama has to make a decision, but things are shifting onto the shoulders of you and obviously the operators who are going to carry out the actual raid. How did you feel that transfer of responsibility as a part of this broader whole?
When I came in to the first meeting, I think was in March, and the process allowed us to go from the macro, here are the options we're looking at, down to the micro, which was, okay, we're going to go with the raid, and then you asked all the right questions, the hard questions. But to me, it didn't end there. The process was mission completion, bin Laden captured or dead, and the boys back home safely. Right. And so I didn't feel that all of a sudden there was this historic shift, and the responsibility now came to the military aspect of this. This was an entire process that everybody was part of. I've said it before, but watching your leadership at the head of the table, I remember walking away going, man, you'd have think this guy had been in the military for 35 years, the way you commanded the room.
We ran a tight process because the stakes were so high. But after all the work we did, all the process that we went through, the one thing I've always emphasized was that there remained enormous uncertainty.
Absolutely.
There was uncertainty about whether it was actually bin Laden in Abbottabad, about what was the nature of the compound. How would the Pakistanis react if they found out? What gave me ultimately confidence to be able to make the decision, once you cut through all the other analysis, was here were a group of military personnel who operated at the highest levels, doing things that no other organization or group of individuals really could carry out.
So you make the decision, Mr. President, and then the day before the raid, you, on a Saturday afternoon from the Oval Office, you called Admiral McRaven for one last conversation in which you wished him well, but also asked him to convey your appreciation to the members of the team. Why did you want to make that call, and what did you convey to Admiral McRaven and the team?
Two reasons I did that. One is that no matter how highly trained those warriors were, there was still enormous risk to a mission like that. But the second reason I think it was important for me is that as Commander-in-Chief, and certainly here in Washington, a lot of times these issues of war are treated as abstractions. And we forget that these are folks who have families and loved ones, and that they are carrying a burden on behalf of hundreds of millions of Americans. And when you are Commander-in-Chief and you make a decision about a particular mission like that, it was one of those rare opportunities where I had a chance to say, not in after the fact, not in retrospect, not when folks are coming home, but before they go, that we don't take this for granted.
This phone call it meant a lot to me and to the guys getting ready to go on the mission. And this was the commander-in-chief, yes, but a man who understood that the SEALs and the Night Stalkers, the helicopter pilots, were getting ready to go on a mission that was, potentially could cost them their lives, and you wanted to convey that to me.
And Mr. President, you went up to New York, shortly after the operation, and went back, obviously, on the anniversary of September 11th. So what was the takeaway from those experiences in New York?
I had stayed in touch with many of the family members of the 9/11 victims. I heard from them both how those wounds in their hearts hadn't fully healed, their concern and their worry that their loved ones and what had happened might be forgotten in the flood of other events that had happened. There was a young woman, at this point 14, who had lost her father at the age of 4 and had actually talked to her father in the building. It was the last conversation that she remembered with her father, and she was there at that ceremony and gave me a big hug, and we had a chance to talk, meeting with the firefighters of the station that had lost almost all of its members because they were some of the first responders. It brought home the fact that so many of the issues we deal with, they are big historic issues, but they are also issues that are very personal for people.
I had a chance to go to New York, I think in November of 2011, and I had not been to New York in 50 years. And when I got to New York, the New Yorkers were so thankful for what the decisions you had made and what the team had done, and I could really begin to internalize it. And of course, it was about bringing justice to bin Laden, but it was about something else as well. It was about this idea that our nation could do something hard and do it well.
I think people also looked at the sacrifices that had been made for a decade in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so this was the closest approximation maybe to a victory day that we might have. But what I'll always remember is the look on that young woman's face and the story she told about her father. And that, I think, captures as well as anything also the sense that each individual in America matters, and that part of being a nation is that we depend on each other, and we remember each other, and we see each other, and that we defend each other.
Admiral McRaven, the other visit President Obama made in the days after was to Fort Campbell, where he was able to meet with the team. I think you at the time, if I remember, were very clear about there's a SEAL team, there's the aviation detachment, the Night Stalkers, but then there were other troops at that base. We talked to troops deploying to Afghanistan, and it seemed like you wanted to convey that this was an achievement of everybody who served in uniform after 9/11. But what are your recollections of that day at Fort Campbell?
There was a recognition that, yes, it was great for the SEALs and the Night Stalkers to be the final piece of the puzzle, but make no mistake about it, this was the hundreds of thousands of soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marines, intelligence professionals, foreign service officers that had all contributed to this fight. And the best way to have done that, certainly from the Department of Defense side, was to meet with one of the larger elements, which was the 101st Airborne Division. The part that I remember most about that visit was after we got through talking to the SEALs and the Night Stalkers, we went over to the 101st. And the plan, at least as I recall, was you were going to get up. We were in a giant hangar, of course. There were hundreds of soldiers out front. You were going to, say some remarks and then kind of shake a few hands, almost a ceremonial shake a few hands.
Right.
Well, you came off the platform, you went down.
That's how I felt.
You went down to start shaking hands. And of course, the soldiers start lining up. And you kept shaking hands. And finally, I kind of saddled up beside you and I said, Mr. President, you don't need to shake everybody's hand. And you turned to me and you said, hey, Bill, this is important to me. and hopefully it's important to them. What you didn't see, which is what I saw, was there was a line outside that hangar.
You know, I will tell you, Bill, because I get emotional about this too. Every one of those kids, they had said, we are here, we are ready, and we are willing to sacrifice everything to defend this country. And some of them saw action, and some of them didn't. Some of them had friends who came back, and some of them had friends who didn't come back. Some came back and were grievously wounded. All of them came back with scars that maybe weren't always visible. Here's what I remember, though, about meeting with the team that had actually executed the mission. It wasn't just that they were highly skilled, and it wasn't just that they were extraordinary warriors, but it was also cool under pressure, experience gained from years of other operations, and frankly, lessons learned from some previous members of Special Forces who didn't come back from a mission. And all, you could, I think explicitly, a number of them mentioned that listen, we're here and we appreciate you thanking us, but understand there are a bunch of guys who aren't here anymore that we learned from, and that allowed us to function at the highest level. And that's the strongest memory I always have, because it reminds me of all of this is part of a chain. You know, we build on the sacrifices and lessons that the hard-won lessons of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who've come before.
Well, and to your point, sir, it wasn't just the 10 years from 9/11. It was the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years all the way to World War II for the special operations guys. I mean, we tried to learn from every mission that went well and every mission that didn't go well. So they were poised to do that.
That's exactly right.
I'd be remiss if I didn't point this out and ask, Mr. President, you're not the most sentimental guy, but you clearly made a choice there in having that flag that's on the wall behind you. What is the story of how you got that flag, and why did you choose to put it, in such a point of probably the most prominent space in your post-presidency office?
There was an American flag that had been taken on the mission. It had been on the helicopter, and it had come back intact, and all of the members of the team who had participated had signed it on the back. And they wanted to present it to me as a gift. That meant the world to me, because it signified that in some small measure, they felt as if I had been true to the mission and their sacrifices, that I had taken it seriously and soberly, and that I had been part of this broader process in a way that elicited trust from them.
I know they appreciated, again, the tough decisions, and they were just honored that you took the time to come down and once again thank them.
So, well, and I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to say thank you, Bill. I've said this publicly many times. I've written it in my book, but I want to say to you personally, I could not have had a better leader and a better representative of all that's good in our military than you, and having you in charge of this mission is what gave me the confidence to make the decision I did. So I thank you and your family for that.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it.